Hey, let's talk about blockbusters and flopbusters and other movies that came out in 2024. And at the end, we're going to do the top 10 highest grossing movies of 2024. And let's just gloss over the fact that I should have made this video 4 months ago. And let's not think about the fact that I have no authority to talk about movies because I do not go out of my way to watch movies anymore. So let's get into it. Blockbusters used to be a big deal. They usually came out in the summer. We had a big blockbuster summer season, and then a lot of big high grossing movies. I don't know if you would call them blockbusters. I think of blockbusters as the more actiony, like rough and tumble kind of action, comedy, dramedy kind of things. A lot of the more feel-good movies came out in Christmas season, but even if they were higher grossing, you could call them blockbusters, I guess. But now the industry is so greedy that they just decide we're going to put blockbusters are just going to come out all the time. Everything's a blockbuster. After the whole Marvel cinema thing, they just said, let's make everything as a blockbuster. Even if it doesn't make sense to make a movie a blockbuster, and it's killed the comedies and it's killed the thoughtful drama kind of movies, and it's killed art house movies and any mid-level budget movies are just not a thing anymore. Everything has to be $150 million production with all the CGI and just action porn for your eyes and just craziness. And it's just killing the movie industry. And that's why I don't watch movies anymore, because they all just seem to be the same thing. They're all just Disney-fied, Marvelized, just slop, CGI crap. And the thing is these movie companies can afford to put $100 million over and over and over and over again and accept these big flops, because if one of those movies makes $1 billion, they can do 10 of those $100 million movies and they still make money. So it's causing audience fatigue, and people just don't care anymore, which leads to the narrative that go woke, go broke, and that Hollywood's broken and nobody cares about Hollywood anymore. And it's just not true, because there is still billion-dollar movies that are being made, and it just, I don't know. All 10 of the top grossing movies in 2024, just like many years for the last 10 or 15 years, have all been sequels or reboots or franchises. And it's just killing the creativity in Hollywood. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that. Let's talk about flopbusters. Flopbusters is a new term for these $100 million movies that are going straight to streaming services. They're being made by the streaming services. And I saw a list of them one day that Brad Pitt and George Clooney were in a movie last year that nobody saw, nobody heard of it. They're using them as bait to get people to sign up for their streaming services. So if you went on Netflix or you went on Amazon, there's specific $100 million movies that were made just for those services. And most of us will never see them. We don't know to look for them if we have those services. And it's just weird. I might even make a video about some of those movies because it's just crazy how many huge celebrities are in these big budget $100 million movies that we've just never heard of. So let's get into some of the biggest flops of 2024. The year started off with a banger, Argylle. Argylle needed $700 million to break even. And it didn't even make $96 million at the theaters. Obviously, the first huge failure of the year. And apparently its story is just convoluted and makes no sense. Plot holes you can drive a truck through, and mediocre acting and mediocre CGI, and it just looks dumb as shit, to be blunt. And speaking of which, the next big flop was Madame Web. And the internet is rife with commentary about how dumb and stupid that movie is. Even the actors in that movie kind of were downplaying it when they were supposed to be promoting it. It obviously lost a bunch of money too. Other big flops, The Fall Guy. I watched the Fall Guy TV show in the early 80s when I was a kid, and I liked the show. I don't know why they would even tie that to a movie release. It's not a property that is you would think had any value. Roadhouse was a property that had a little bit of cachet. People still talk about that Roadhouse movie. Why they thought to remake it, I don't know. I've seen some scenes from it and looked pretty cool. Jake Gyllenhaal is pretty decent, but I think it was a big, huge flop too. Furiosa, you're going to have a Mad Max sequel without Mad Max in it. Obviously, it's some sort of origin story. And I'm sure it's decent. It's a good action movie, but nobody cared. Made $32 million on the Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day is usually the big blockbuster weekend. And to put it into perspective, it was the lowest grossing Memorial Day weekend since Casper in 1995. Number 2 was Garfield with Chris Pratt. And once again, to put it in perspective, the top 2 movies this year on Memorial Day made half of what last year's Little Mermaid made on Memorial Day opening together. They made half of what Little Mermaid made. Next, let's talk about Borderlands. Comic book movie, about 10 years too late. I think it's based on a video game. The actors are decent. It seems to be below Cate Blanchett. I can't believe she's in this movie. It didn't even make 10% of what it needed to break even. Other movies, Wild Robot was DreamWorks, I think, and it looked pretty neat. My Spy with Dave Bautista. It was kind of his, what was the movies that when Arnold first started breaking off of the action and did like Kindergarten Cop and some other of those little comedies. And Vin Diesel tried to do the same thing with that My Bodyguard, My Babysitter, The Babysitter, that's what it was called. Where they try to do these feel-good movies with kids. The Rock did it when he did Tooth Fairy and a couple other little, like, big tough guy with the kids type of movie. I don't know. Never heard anything about it after it came out. Fly Me to the Moon was a rom-com with Tatum O'Neal and Scarlett Johansson with the backdrop of them filming the fake moon landing, which seems like an awesome premise, but I didn't even know about that movie until I started researching for this video. Came and went. Wonka was a big, huge flop, even though Timothée Chalamet is a big commodity now. Still didn't help the Wonka movie. Twisters was an unnecessary reboot of Twister, which is another, was that 96, 97? With the late, great Bill Paxton. No reason why we needed that. Another one that we had no reason to have was the Crow movie. Came out. You look into the Crow curse. It's supposed to be a cursed movie, starting with the first movie. Obviously, Brandon Lee was killed on the set, but there was a whole bunch of accidents. There was a fire, and somebody drove a forklift through a thing, and a bunch of people got hurt, and some guy had a screwdriver ran through his hand, and so it caused this whole, the curse of the Crow, and it's plagued every movie that they've made since then. Every Crow movie has been a flop. This Crow movie has been in development hell for 19 years with a string of directors and actors that you wouldn't believe. I watched a couple of videos about the making of this new Crow movie and the adverse things that they had to go through. And I don't know. It may be good. I'll never watch it. There's only one Crow movie as far as I'm concerned. And it's the first one. Alien Romulus, continuing the Alien franchise. They had to show off their ability to CGI dead celebrity Ian Holm, who plays the robot in the original Alien, comes back. No need for that. They're just showing off how they can do that now, and it's going to start happening more and more. Whatever. First Omen is obviously origin or prequel to the Omen series. I've heard that's actually kind of a decent movie. Other horror movies that came out last year were Longlegs, that I heard was kind of decent. Abigail looked like a neat premise. A girl gets kidnapped and you're like, oh no, poor girl is kidnapped, and she ends up being the monster. Spoilers. And that looked pretty neat. A Quiet Place prequel. I don't think we needed that. The whole premise of The Quiet Place was kind of fun, but do we need an origin story? I don't know. The Substance was the big breakout. Kind of brought Demi Moore back into the spotlight. It did decent, I think, and it won several Academy Awards. Maybe it deserved it. I'm pretty sure it probably did. The Bike Riders with Tom Hardy and Austin Butler, the guy that played Elvis. That looked like a decent movie. Civil War kind of didn't really live up to the hype that it's kind of presented itself to be when it first came out. Kind of came and went. You had Boneyard with Mel Gibson. You had The Beekeeper with Jason Statham playing the same old character. The one I was the most interested in was Guy Ritchie's Ministry of Ungentlemanly Wear. Try that again. Guy Ritchie's Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. And it's not based on a true story, sort of based on a true story. Obviously, very, very fictionalized, but it was a true group of badass men, including the guy that wrote James Bond. Ultimately, one of the guys is actually in the group, is who he based James Bond on. And that looked like a neat movie. Oh, let's talk about Horizon. Kevin Costner's big, epic, sprawling thing that he was so involved in wanting to make this. Supposed to be 4 or 5 parts, and he mortgaged his own house to put into that movie, and hundreds of millions of dollars, and it only made 33 million back. They immediately pulled the sequel, let alone 5 parts of it. I don't know why Kevin Costner just has this way of getting himself tied into a project that he just believes in so much, and they're always failures. Waterworld, The Postman, and The Postman's a decent movie, but it just was a big, sprawling, epic adventure, and it just was a big, fat failure. Kevin Costner's a big movie star somehow, and every once in a while he'll do some decent role in a movie, but whenever he just puts his heart and soul in a movie, it's never the one that does anything. This Horizon was just not it. And speaking of big epic failures that people believed in wholeheartedly, Francis Ford Coppola made Megalopolis, and it's an idea that he's had for 15 or 20 years. He put millions and millions of his own money into it. It cost $140 million to make, and didn't even make $13 million back. It's going to go down in history as one of the biggest flops in history. And from what I've seen, it looks pretty neat. I think it's going to end up being a big cult classic eventually, because it looks big and epic and sprawling and crazy. And if the story holds together even marginally, he could come out on the right side of that in the end. But he's old. If it takes 20 years for that movie to become epic cult classic, he won't see the benefits of that. Not to be morbid, but another one of the biggest fails of the year was Joker 2, and it looked dull and drab, and it's a musical on top of that. And I think my theory is that Todd Haynes did not want to make a sequel to The Joker, and the studio was surprised that The Joker became a $1 billion movie, and they came to him and said, okay, well, that was a $1 billion movie. We need a sequel. And he said, I don't want to make a sequel. And they said, let me rephrase. We're going to make a sequel, and you can be involved if you want. And so he said, okay. And he went out of his way to make that the worst movie of all time in order to troll fans, I think, and the studio mostly. And that's what I think. Red One was one of those flop busters that I was talking about earlier. action comedy. No, Red One. I'm thinking of that was the one with Gal Gadot and The Rock and Ryan Reynolds from a couple years ago. I'm confusing that. What was that called? Red Band or Red? It was Red something. Red One is the action comedy Christmas movie. And I think it was a flopbuster too. It was not in theaters, but $250 million budget. And I'm sure 20% of that was for The Rock's payday. And never heard anything about it after that. Like I said, those flopbusters on those streaming services, they just don't get any press, and I don't see how they justify that kind of cost for those streaming services. We also had Gladiator 2, which came and went. It should have been, I mean, if they would have done that, if they would have done that 20 years ago, it would have been 10 years too late. And no, when did the first Gladiator? That was about that, 98 maybe. If they would have done that 20 years ago, yeah, it probably would have been a kind of a big deal. But this day and age, nobody cares anymore. The Planet of the Apes sequel was originally, before the end of the year tally came in, it originally was in the top 10 highest grossing of the year, but it still lost money, even though it was in the top 10 of the highest grossing movies of the year. I don't know how that works, but was a thing. Bad Boys 4, I don't know why we needed that, but they're not calling it Bad Boys 4. I think they lost count, so they had like a subtitle, Ride or Die or something like that, I think. I'm sure it's a decent movie. It's big action, like Joel Schumacher, Michael Bay type of movie. But did we need 4 Bad Boys movies? I don't know. I thought Will Smith was canceled anyway after the Oscar thing. The Oscar slap. Guess not. Venom 3. I don't know. Beetlejuice 2. Beetlejuice. Whatever. That kind of foreshadows that there's going to be a Beetlejuice. And do we really need it? I don't know. Do we care about Winona Ryder's character being all grown up? You didn't have Jeffrey Jones, which is appropriate to not have him in a movie. He's been canceled for all his indiscretions. You can look that up on your own. We won't get into that here. But it doesn't even have Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin. Why would you not have those two people in a Beetlejuice movie? Because obviously they're dead and they wouldn't age if they were dead. And they would look 30 years older. But still, do we need a Beetlejuice sequel? I mean, 20 years ago, we needed a Beetlejuice sequel. Anyway, let's get into the top 10 highest grossing movies of 2024. Number 10 was a movie called YOLO, and I think it was a Chinese movie. I know nothing about it. It slipped in there right at the end, knocking Planet of the Apes out. Number 9 was Mufasa, the Lion King sequel, of course, because we needed that. Kung Fu Panda 4 comes in at number 8. Godzilla vs. King Kong is number 7. 6, Wicked slipped in there at the last minute too. I'm not sure when that came out, November or December, but it was enough to make it the 6th highest grossing movie of the year. And I'm so over those two women and I guess that proves I'm not woke because I'm just not down for all of their bullshit. There's just so much drama that those two pulled in the press, and I just can't even get into it. Number 5 is Dune 2. Dune 2. Once again with Timothy Chalamet. I'm glad the Dune movies are being made in a way that kind of more represents the books. Um, I hope they don't fall off eventually. I don't know. They may stop right there with it being the 5th highest grossing movie of the year. I'm sure it won't. We'll get at least one more. There's enough Frank Herbert Dune stories and books to make a dozen movies. I'm glad that that's not in the development hell that it was in through all of the 70s. We finally got the Dune movie in 84, and it's cool seeing David Lynch's take on Dune, but I'm glad we're getting the more accurate to the books representation of Dune. That may be one of the only movies I've said something positive about here. Moana 2, Despicable 4. How many Despicable movies and Minions movies do we need? My dad loves the Minions, and actually we watched Minions The Rise of Gru yesterday at his house because he just loves those Minions. I don't know, it's just so funny watching him revert to being a kid when he watches those movies. They're fun. Gru's a good bad guy. Good, fun, bad guy. Bad guy with a heart of gold. But I'm just so over all of those Pixar animated type of movies. Despicable Me's and the Minions are kind of at the top of the heap as far as doing a good job on those things still. So whatever. They deserve it. Where are we at? 6, 5, 4, 3. That was number 3. Second highest grossing movie of the year was Deadpool and Wolverine. And that surpassed Joker as the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. And it surpassed Pretty Woman as the biggest grossing R-rated Disney movie, which I think is kind of interesting. They pull the whole multiverse crap so that they can do all kinds of stuff. And it's a neat trick that Hollywood's been pulling, because now they can kill the main character in the trailer, and it freaks everybody out. Because then when you watch the movie, oh, that was the multiverse. That was another timeline that happened. And they can do this in this timeline and this timeline. And they can show you all kinds of... It's kind of the new version of It Was All a Dream. All the movies and TV shows that they... Right at the very end, they just pull the rug out from underneath of you and fucking punch you in the jaw by... Oh, they wake up and it was all just a dream. Whatever. Inside Out 2 became the highest grossing animated movie of all time and the number 1 highest grossing movie of 2024. And considering what I said about the Minions, Inside Out is got to be my favorite Pixar Disney movie of all time. The idea of the emotions all having characters, and it's just so how I see the world and see psychology through my eyes. I love those movies. I haven't seen the second one, obviously, but the first Inside Out movie is so well done that I expect this one to be more of the same. And yeah, there's the top 10 grossing movies of 2024. about 4 months too late. Hope you still watch this, and comment if you've seen any of these movies, if you hate them, if you love them, if there's movies that you're looking forward to in this year, the coming year, or whatever. I don't know, like I said, I don't really do a lot of movie stuff, but I don't even think I've seen a movie. I haven't seen a movie in the theaters since Predators in, when was that, 2008 maybe? I can't remember the last new movie I've watched. Well, I watched The Minions yesterday, I guess I could say that one. But whatever. I'm smart. I know things. I can deduce without having to sit through a whole movie what the movie's about. I watch all of these pitch meetings and the honest trailers, and I would rather watch a 20-minute Joe Blow movie about a movie than spend 2 hours watching the movie. I learn more about the background. I'm more interested in what about the actors and the directing and the cinematography and all of the behind the scenes stuff than I am setting through a movie itself. But that's just me. You guys go watch movies, listen to music, spend money, do the things. Let's try to survive and live. And I'll see you later.